Right now, folks, we're going to jump over to our man, Basil Chapman. You can listen to the Tiger Technicians Hour after my morning program every day, live at 10 a.m. Eastern Time. And don't forget, folks, if you haven't checked it out yet, it's right on the front page of the TFNN.com, the opening call. And, folks, if you haven't tried it, even if you had, Basil has had some outstanding calls recently. Okay, check out the opening call. You gain access to the archive webinar he just did last month as well. And we're going to talk about some of that and some of his calls right now. Basil Chapman, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Tommy. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. How is beautiful Boston doing on this lovely Wednesday?
Actually, it's still warm, and I managed to squeeze in a little bit of tennis earlier today. So
you're a good man.
Good.
You got to stay on it. I'm always, it's great. You're so active, man. We all got to fight to find that time, and not fight, but it's so important to stay active. It's awesome, man.
Yeah.
So, speaking of active, Basil, how about this market? What are you looking at?
So maybe I just want to run through. Maybe I'll try to be in order as possible, because this is really, for me, it's a very critical moment. Not that I'm anticipating anything very serious, because the weekly charts are still so strong. But on the shorter term, I'll show you what I'm looking at. So the Dow, we've been long the Dow since April, and we've actually been longer than that. But the last bit that we added was in April. And we remain that way, but I'm very close, and just on a short-term basis, to buy some insurance, because I think we're starting to get to an area. I'll show you on this chart. So what I always look at, this is what I usually look at. There's a background thing that over the decades I've developed, and it's really, markets don't, I finally figured out a long time ago, markets don't really drop precipitously unless there's bad news. So I got I call it an index. It's not even an index. It's just my own thing called the Chapman Wave Dark News Cloud Cover. In other words, you can get sell-offs, but to get a persistent sell-off, you have to have something that impacts the market. It just filters through the news media, and within a very short time, that becomes the theme. Tariffs, impeachment, whatever it is. Just it could be the funding, government funding. And that becomes a little tiny little note, and then the font becomes bigger and bigger until it's a headline. So that's what I'm looking at right now. I have a technique that I call the Chapman Wave. This is the yellow. When you see yellow background chart with me, that usually implies that I'm about to put up the daily chart of the Dow, and it has certain areas. Let me see if there we are, where I think of you get an internal high, which is like an earthquake, and then you get the residual high. It's like the aftershock, and that could be less, it could be the same, it could be a little bit more than the earthquake, but that's where turns occur. And it's the same at the bottom. And I've used these, and it used to be bonds, the yield used to do it. But actually, what I've done now is it's based on other criteria. So I have what I call an internal high here, and I'm anticipating some kind of a residual high in the daily chart. But you can see this green 9-period moving average remains stubbornly positive, which I think is very good. But I'm looking at this, and now I'm going to get out of this, and I want to show you, remind you, just, I look at, we have some positions that we've got not that much left, but we still have them, like GE, Robinhood. These are stocks that Microsoft, that for my own our little portfolio that we had for a long time with these stocks in it. They're very important. So GE, what does it do? It makes a new all-time high today, 307.25.
Look at that equity! Wow,
that's amazing, huh? And we've had that from 198, and it's still holding well. And within that context, it's making an all-time high. Robinhood, we've got some of it still from the 16s, but very little left. But here it is. It's kind of a benchmark for me. It's the kind of the lay person who's into trading, into gold, into Bitcoin. And here it is at an all-time high, and it still looks very strong. Microsoft, we've got it from the 388, and here it is at 509. And it's just been, since it made that 555 high, it's been stalling. So when I put this together, I said, okay, and even Bitcoin, which was on a tear and did fantastically, and we still have our core Bitcoin through the IBIT, the IBIT. went to 125,200, and I've been saying for a while, it looks to me like it's stalling, but it hasn't broken down. If you look at gold, and I said to subscribers over the last couple of days, I said, I'm wondering if we aren't going to get a market pullback. I don't know how serious how deep it is, because you need that bad news, but maybe it coincides with the stock market itself. So we made a 75.28 high in the GDX, and it's pulling back a little bit here. I'm watching this very closely. The gold stocks have all done well. So
can you hang with us for the break, Basil?
Sure, I will.
Okay, folks, we're going to finish it up with Basil. We'll talk some more gold, okay? And we're going to talk some more equities as well. We're coming back with our man, Basil Chapman. We got markets in the red. You got gold off by $60 after all-time highs yesterday. Basil and I are coming right back, folks. Welcome back, folks. We got gold right now. First time we got a little bit of a bid. Gold just jumped almost $10 from $37.50 to $37.59. You get the S&Ps off by 26 points. We're talking to our man Basil Chapman, and don't forget, folks, right on the front page of TFNN, the opening call. Check that out. And when you sign up, folks, Basil just did a webinar last month, identifying trend changes, what action to take. You gain access to that immediately when you sign up. The archive, among many other webinars that you gained, but that one you just did last month. And Basil, if you could just talk for a moment to the listeners out there, because, you know, trend changes, especially in light of what you're talking about, but they're always important to have in your toolbox, kind of what you covered in that 90-minute webinar for subscribers, if you don't mind, please.
Sure. One of the most important things that I consider in terms of my own work is the 9-period exponential moving average over the 14. And I've discussed that in great detail. And you can see in this chart right here, the weekly chart of the Dow, how the 9-period moving average has held way above the 14. That's the green line. This is the middle chart. The green line is above the black line. And it coincides sometimes with the MACD and the moving average convergence divergence. But look at this one particular tool. Look how it's held the price so nicely. So this is one of the techniques. The other was within the context of the monthly charts. What I had said was that look at that sharp pullback from the Dow, 45,073 back in December, and then it plunges 18% down to 36,661, and yet this green 9-period moving average right here, let's see if I can make it a little bit bigger, held fantastically. And that just said to me there was internal buying. So that's just one of the many techniques that I use. There you can see it. See that green line right there? And look at that sharp pullback. So these are, what I say is that the 914 can keep you in a position way longer than your emotions could even imagine that you could stay in. And that's kind of the case. And even now, as we're talking, look, the 9-period moving average with the Dow in the daily chart is way over the 14. So it's kept us in this position. And with that said, I also said I'm looking at different areas. And one of the areas was AI, energy. So look at this. We bought, I spoke about this a couple of times over the past weeks, IREN, IREN. This is in the, where did it go? Let me just opened up the chart. But look at this. This is basically, there you go. So this is,
look at it today, and up another 13%. Go ahead.
Unbelievable. Yeah, so we're at 22 just the other day.
Congrats, Basil.
And here is over a double since, we've only had this a couple of weeks. We got in, I believe it was like the 26th or so of August. So it's been, and what we've done is, I've tried to get us into areas that I think are longer term. This is now, because we've had such a nice position, we're taking a little bit off, but I'm trying as much as possible, rather than to whittle down, is to whittle up, so that when we have really successful positions, instead of when it finally gets to this incredible like GE and Robinhood, which we actually started in the 16s, and right now it's at 126, but we've got much less than I would like. I've tried to now change the modus operandi with this particular market, and because the 914s are so strong, to actually start increasing our positions rather than decreasing on the ones that I think have the potential in 2025 to move higher. And I'm also trying to get into different price ranges. Not everybody can get into a $300 stock. They can buy less, but the thinking is that you could buy a little bit more if you're buying $22 like we did with Iran. So I'm trying to do that. And that's what we discussed. I spent a lot of time saying the trend is your friend. We're going to try to use this. It's not just one indicator, but it's an indicator that really has been quite wonderful for us. The other thing that I use is the relationship of the XLF, which is the financials. Just look at this. This is amazing. This is the pink is the XLF, the S&P Select Financial Fund, and the blue, this is a monthly chart, and the blue is the S&P 500. Look at the synchronicity. Look at the way the tops and bottoms have been parallel. I couldn't believe when I've had this looking at it for a long time, but I spent about a year ago, I said, I've tried this with the TLT, I've tried this with many other stocks, and then I said, let's see where the banks go. Usually that's where the market goes. Our major tops have been when the banks have failed, right? The banks have done bad things, and then finally that affected the market. And look how strong this is. All-time highs in this month. And look, all-time high in the S&P, all-time high in the XLF. So I spent a lot of time discussing why I wanted to go into different areas, why I was going to sacrifice some areas that I liked very much. I discussed them very often, but I also said within the context, say, of the IWM, I don't want to wait for gains because this is a market that's giving you an opportunity. I want to take as much as we can. We want to be in what actually has even greater potential. That's not to say, and people ask me, what about IWM? I said the Russell 2000, I like it for 2025. I think it's going to make all-time highs. And look at the other thing I discussed is, look at these double tops. It's hard to believe that an index, you can understand it with a stock, but look at this, the IWM, the iShares Russell 2000 ETF goes to 244.46 in November of 2021. It dives down, it bounces around from 161 and retests 161 in October of 2023, and it goes what? It goes right back to 244.98, just about 55 cents above the previous high of 2021, in November of 2025, exactly 4 years later. It tumbles down to the 170 level. Where is it right now? 241. What did it hit the other day? 247, just above. I love the way the markets remember the horizontal levels and then come back to them within pennies. It's just
sometimes I say, Basil, it's not rocket science, folks, and it doesn't work every time, but sometimes it doesn't have to be that complicated, as in just those areas, man, where the market, it's whether it's resistance, support, and that's a great example of it, man. You talk about an area, it's like where you look at that chart, right, Basil, and if you said to someone, hey, where do you think on this chart the Russell might face some resistance as you trade higher, right? You'd say that area, and it turns around within 50 pennies, right? Hey, it's emotions, man. We're all human in the market, in the emotions. Yeah.
Right. So it's it's always an exciting thing, and I try to make it exciting for my subscribers. People. Well, we look. Basil, I try to identify
you've been
numbers.
On a heck of a run, man. Robinhood. Not that it's not easy, but I think, you think like a company like that, my goodness, the multiples. But GE, my goodness, I wasn't even aware myself, I think. You think of the high flyers, GE. I mean, GE is almost as much as much as Robinhood in the last few years, man. You just went from $40 to $300 on GE, which, Robinhood's went from $12 to $100, but it is just a remarkable run. So congrats to you. And folks, check out the opening call. It's a great time to do it. You gain access to that webinar that he did last month, and then, of course, many others, and you get the report from a month with a 30-day money-back guarantee. Well, Basil, always a great conversation, man, and good to hear you're out there playing some tennis, and I can't wait for the next opening call. We'll be looking forward tomorrow, man. Thank you for the interview, of course.
Thank you very much, Tommy. Have a great evening.
My pleasure. Always a pleasure. Take care, Basil. Basil Chapman, a great man. Check out that opening call, folks. Outstanding newsletter. You gain access to the archive webinar, and he has had some outstanding calls. He's on a run. Great time to check it out. We're coming right back, folks.